The rain falling over Brussels smelled of burnt plastic and tear gas. Elena Vance stood in the shadow of the town hall's Gothic facade on the Grand Place, pulling up the collar of her coat. A few hundred meters away, near the central station, firefighters were hosing down the streets after the evening's riots. A peaceful demonstration against educational reforms had, as usual, been hijacked by masked groups. The result: smashed windows, burning vehicles, and fireworks launched straight into police barricades and bystanders. She looked at her phone. The editorial office in Stockholm had just published her short brief. The headline read, "Clashes during student protests in Brussels." Nothing about the wrecked cars. Nothing about the criminal mob. Just a sterile, safe umbrella term to avoid fueling the debate back home. They don't censor because they are malicious. A voice said beside her, "They censor because they are terrified." Elena turned around. The man who had stepped under the shelter was in his 40s, dressed in a worn tweed jacket that was entirely unsuited for the damp Brussels evening. He held a simple notebook in his hand. Elena recoiled as she realized his gaze had been fixed on a mobile screen. "Excuse me?" Elena said coldly. Journalists in Brussels were used to being accosted by eccentrics and lobbyists. Hans Nilsson, analytical philosopher and rational visionary. He introduced himself, extending a hand she did not take. "I've been following your reporting, Elena, or rather, I've been following what is left of your reporting after your newsroom filters it. It's fascinating. You are trying to put out a forest fire by pretending the smoke doesn't exist." "I report facts," Elena snapped. "No, you report symptoms," Hans replied calmly. "But that's not why I'm here. I'm here because your brother Marcus isn't answering his phone. And since he works with global risk analysis at NATO and you are his only relative in Europa, I thought you could get him to listen to pure, unadulterated mathematics." Elena locked her eyes onto him. "What do you want with my brother?" Hans opened his notebook. The pages were filled with timestamps, coordinates, and mathematical formulas. 3 months ago, 40 Starlink satellites fell over the Pacific Ocean. Official explanation: a solar storm. 2 months ago, a tactical nuclear weapon detonated in the Taklamakan Desert in western China. No one claimed responsibility, and everyone assumed it was a failed Chinese test. 2 weeks ago, the entire Belgian rail network's control system collapsed due to a software migration. "Those are isolated incidents," Elena said, though she felt a faint shiver run down her spine. "That is what your emotions are telling you, because it's too frightening to see the connection," Hans said, taking a step closer. "But if you plot these events into a Nash equilibrium diagram, you see that they are not isolated. They are calibrated and clearly coordinated. Someone or something is measuring humanity's reaction capacity. They are sacrificing just enough infrastructure and life for the shock to register, but not so much that we start a third world war." Elena let out a nervous laugh. "And who is this someone? The Russians? The Chinese?" "No," Hans said, looking up at the dark Brussels sky where no stars were visible through the clouds. "If it were a nation, they would use it politically. They would brag, threaten, or make demands. This force is entirely silent. It does not communicate with words. It communicates with physical crisis. Your brother is looking for a human strategist in his data models. I need you to convince him to stop looking for human origin. We are facing an architect operating at a civilizational level, not a strategic national one." Elena looked at the philosopher. He didn't look like a madman. He looked like a man who had just calculated the exact date for the end of the world, and who was deeply frustrated that no one else understood basic arithmetic. "Come," she said briefly, turning toward the metro. "Marcus is sitting at a cafe by Place de Luxembourg. You get 10 minutes. But if you are wrong, I'm calling the police." Hans smiled faintly. and followed her. The tragedy, Elena, is not if I am wrong. The tragedy is if I am absolutely right. And we are only seeing the tip of the iceberg.